I had made the decision a while back, maybe a week or 10 days ago, to talk about the ego today. And I don't know about you, but when I decide to study something or look into something or pay attention to something, it seems to be amplified. And I remember sending an email to a friend a day or two ago that attempting to catch the ego and get a closer look at it was similar to chasing a greased pig, perhaps. And that maybe that anyone who saw what we were going to talk about today might have had that mechanism within them that said, gee, I don't know if I want to go this morning. So, thankfully, my ego is really big on honor. And so the fact that I promised to be here and to do that and not change the subject was something that my ego was bound to protect at all costs. So I'm here too, and we are sticking with this topic. It's really a funny thing, and I think some of my favorite teachers are the ones who teach about the serious stuff with humor, because we need it. Boy, if you look out on what we're doing here and this life that we're living and all of the qualities and characteristics of our experience, it's possible to feel overwhelmed. So why not add a little levity? So first of all, the idea that I'd like to share with you is what the ego is, because it is often misunderstood. And there are a few definitions that help to clarify that. Also, there's an opportunity to look at some of the antics, some of the things that it does that absolutely just go against what we really want to have happen. But that's the way it can operate. Some of the funny things about how it acts up, which is why I referred to antics. The other part that we're going to look at this morning is that, of course, there is a solution. And it just might lie in understanding what our ego is really here to do. And of course, there is a vision for a greater experience than the one we're having on those days. Very interesting. The definition of ego from a physical standpoint. And I'm starting with the physical and moving to the spiritual on purpose because that's part of the problem. Physically, it is sad that this mechanism evolved to protect the biological form early in human life. That maybe there were a few mishaps in the early days when there was no expectation of danger, no concept of harm, no idea that anything could happen but good. No understanding of the relationship to elements and so on, like fire, for example, or height, gravity. So this thing, it is said, emerged within us. It evolved within us to sense danger and to protect the biological form. Then there's the definition. This is the dictionary. It might be Webster's, I'm not sure, but it's a dictionary definition of the psychological look at what the ego is. This is very interesting. It is the organized, conscious mediator between person and reality. Get this. Both in the perception of it and the adaptation to it. Now there is a big responsibility. Okay, so psychologically this mechanism is charged with being organized, with being conscious, and it's supposed to go out into life and decide what to make things mean. What does this mean? And then decide what to do about it. Well, you can imagine that if it's disconnected from another source of information besides what's going on in the world, this could get messy, and it often does. So here's the ideal. This is the spiritual definition of ego, and actually there are many. This is from a Science of Mind textbook and also from some references to A Course in Miracles. Spiritually, this is our real consciousness, the inner self, the real self, the higher self, the I am principle, or you could say the Christ consciousness. You could say the Buddha consciousness. It's that thing within each of us that knows. So when things go wrong physically, something that happens is that we develop a conditioned response. An example of what can go wrong in terms of just looking at the ego from a physical standpoint is, it could be really useful. Like, well, I shut my hand in a car door and that didn't feel very good, so now I'm more careful where my hand is when I shut the door, right? Or perhaps when you were young, you too learned about fire. I understand from my sister and my other siblings that I had a very significant burn on my arm trying to get close to the pizza in the oven or something. There's a very useful thing in your physicality, learning, okay, that's danger, I'll stay away from that from now on. But one of the things that's happened is that this part of the ego, without getting its information from anywhere else, that's the key, can recognize other things as dangerous which really aren't. It operates from the primal level, from the limbic brain. And it has two options, fight or flight. So from that uninformed place, yes, it gathers information about what is truly dangerous, what should be avoided, what to expect, and how to navigate more safely. But sometimes it gathers other information, says, well, this is dangerous too. Like Joe over there, Joe, definitely stay away from Joe. Or Susie, I got to stay away from Susie because she's dangerous to my sense of well-being. And it gets out of hand. So it has to be some more information. It has to get information from somewhere else. When it works by itself, not so good. Psychologically, some of the things that can go wrong, I just began to mention. And that's when we experience a wound or an experience of harm emotionally. And we make a note to self in that part whose job is to protect us. And we say, okay, I think from now on, I'm never going to apply for another job or enter into another intimate relationship or ever try to live in another country or whatever it is. Ever try to do this again because I tried it once and it hurt. Well, of course, that's not going to work either. These responses that we get from our psychological environment too, they can help us either fine-tune our journey or decide not to take it. And we don't really want to do that. Spiritually, if we're disconnected from that principle within, that higher self, or whatever you want to call it, that inner knower, that thing within us that has never been separate, that has never imagined anything else but blissful wholeness and oneness and unity and magnificence, if we're not connected with that spiritually, we end up feeling like we're alone. We may even develop ideas and opinions, perceptions of, and adaptations to the spiritual realm that are defensive and protective. We may say, oh, I'm not going to do that. Yeah, because I grew up in a place where they did that, and it didn't make any sense, and I thought it was hypocritical, and it just upset me, and it didn't help me out when I was in a pinch, so to heck with that. I remember, I'll give you an example of a way that I shot myself in the foot along my spiritual path. I met a teacher, a guru, who was a self-proclaimed something or other, master of something, and he was teaching meditation techniques. And I thought, wow, these are wonderful. I have never felt so relaxed and centered in my entire life. But when I tried to leave that place and go take those principles with me into my own life, that person said, oh no, you need to stay here. You need to change your name. You need to wear this clothing. You need to never cut your hair. You need to not talk to your family. And I'm like, so I did the right thing, by the way. I said goodbye. That was all in the span of 2 weeks, 2 very interesting weeks. I said goodbye, but I did something else that wasn't the right part of the spiritual response to the situation at hand. I stopped meditating for a long while. And guess who lost out on that one? I'm the one who lost my peace. I'm the one who got miserable. So to be able to discern what is good information and what is just stuff coming from our senses and our physical world and our experiences, that's supposed to be the job of the healthy ego, to decide what things mean, to perceive, and then to choose what to do about it, which is to adapt. If we remember nothing else, this mechanism is supposed to perceive and adapt, to mediate between us and reality. And there's that other important part. It's supposed to be organized, and it's supposed to be conscious. So actually, if we look deeply into the definition of what it's supposed to be, maybe, and follow that, we'll get what it has to give us, rather than half of it. There's a really funny illustration in A Course in Miracles about the ego, which I absolutely love. You see, the small ego, the one that gets all its information from the physical world, operates from the primal limbic area of the brain, has 2 options, fight or flight, knows nothing else. Really small vocabulary, right? This one suddenly recognizes that we're waking up. Its whole world is based on fear, foreseeing danger, protecting us from it, and defending against it. Right? And then we start to go to all these spiritual centers and all these conferences and read all these books and start meditating with our friends, and we start discovering that that's not exactly what it's supposed to be doing. A funny thing can happen. And a lot of people who are doing a dance of addiction or struggling to make a change, they have a revelation about making a change. Oh, I'm going to start doing this now. And they get a pushback from somewhere inside themselves and can't figure out why it's so hard. That ego, the small ego, which is detached from the rest of the source of its information, its wisdom, its reason for being, recognizes this idea of doing away with fear, of no longer acknowledging, perceiving, or reacting to danger, of becoming enlightened and loving everyone, of recognizing our oneness. That idea, it looks like another enemy. It looks like another opponent. It looks like something else to defend against, to protect itself from. But what's happening right now for so many people is that this is an awakening, so the old way of operating isn't working anymore. And this thing inside us that's supposed to decide what things mean and decide what to do about it to protect us from harm suddenly gets a memo from another part of ourselves that says, well, wait a minute, I know there's another way. And it doesn't know another way. That identity, the one that's based entirely on fear, hears about this change and thinks, oh my God, I have to stop this. This is death. This is a pink slip. This is a layoff. This is the end of the world as I know it. So that's where a lot of the antics come in. That's where a lot of the pushback comes from. Is that part of us that says, oh, am I going to have to grow again? I had a friend whose husband used to say that. She'd say, Rod, we need to talk. And he'd say, oh no, do I have to grow again? So really, that's what spot the ego is in right now. And one of the things that we've tried to do over the years, like a lot of things we don't understand or care for, is to push it down, right? Hide it back there. Disown it. See if we can get away from it. Have it surgically removed. But you can't do that. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a purpose. Oftentimes in modern medicine, the resolution is to remove the thing that's causing the problem. And we know we really can't do that because this thing does have a purpose. It does have a part to play in our lives. So what we really get to do is say to it, when it acts up, there, it's going to be all right. Educate ourselves and educate it about who it came here to be. Go ahead and keep discovering who we came here to be. Go ahead and keep going out to those seminars and reading those books and meditating with our friends and asking and taking those leaps of faith. Because really what we're letting go of, what a struggle, right? How much energy does it take to be constantly vigilant, looking out for danger physically, looking out for danger psychologically, imagining that this whole idea of spirituality is fraught with hypocrisy and best avoided? That's a pretty lonely, bumpy, bruisey, icky kind of life. And a beautiful thing is happening right now. It's falling apart. It's not working. Each one of us in some little or big way is being asked to give up that living small stuff and to be willing to say yes to life in a really big way. You know, they say we can't get through the eye of the needle without unloading some of that baggage that we've been carrying on our camel. All of these prophecies say it is the end of the world as we know it. And some of them are kind enough to point out that it's the beginning we should be really conscious about. Because what we do from this point forward is up to us. It's our choice. But it's about letting go. It's about letting go, and you may get a little pushback because, gosh, I had everything just so. I know. I worked with a guy, he always stirred his coffee like 32 times. And we said, why 32? And he said, that's how many times it takes to dissolve the sugar in the bottom or something. Well, what if you went for 31 or 10 or, I don't know, something different? Many people in exercising their capacity to become willing to change are asked to go out and do something entirely different for a week from how they have done it. And that's what we're called to do right now. Because there's a place inside of us that has the right information for that mechanism. There's a place inside of us that has that direction, that can tell us what things really mean. The beautiful, rich, spiritual magnificence of every event in our lives, like Arlene recognizing a tree birthing another part of itself. And responses to and relating with other people and places and things in life in a way that is life-affirming, where there isn't a loser and a winner. One doesn't die and one lives. There are ways of responding and adapting that are for all life. So if you saw that psychological definition of the ego in the middle of you, and perhaps up until now, yours was getting most of its information from down here and out there, all we need to ever do is tap in to the source of wisdom and knowledge that is within each of us, that is in here and up there. And then that can occupy our lives. That can direct our lives. That can be who we are and how we live. And so instead of laughing brain, about the antics of the ego, kicking back and pushing back again. Why not take the plunge? Why not take the leap and allow something greater to happen now? I know for me, I get to ask that question a lot because I'm comfortable in my habits. I understand them. They are predictable. And yet, I'm being asked to evolve. I'm being asked to grow, to be more. And the only way that I can do that is to stop being a lone soldier and to operate from a higher place. And the way to do that is to let go and allow something greater within and all around me to show me the way. So I invite you to close your eyes and come to a place with me. A place that is familiar. A place that I'm sure you know well. In the stillness of the interior of your inner self, there is a seat. It's like a throne. The back of this seat aligns with your back. And the arms of this seat hold your arms. Imagine yourself sitting in it and notice how perfectly it fits your body. Notice how you instantly feel calm and sure when you sit in this chair. Notice the presence of warmth coming to you from your back into your arms and hands, your legs and feet. Recognize the presence of infinite wisdom and boundless love washing over you, filling you up. And notice this seat softening almost into a warm embrace, as if you were sitting on the lap of an elder, a wise one, a parent. This is your higher self, your inner knower, here for you always. Infinitely connected with the all that is, always loving, always available. And as you get up and move from this place and return to this room in which you find yourself, that wisdom, that love, that certainty comes with you. Know that you can return to that place every day, as often as you like. And you will always find that wisdom, that guidance, that love and that strength to live the life you were meant to live, to be who you have come here to be. And so I know as we move out of this space, that we recognize the presence of this power and this love within each and every one of us, and that we are here for a greater purpose and a greater vision than the short-sightedness of reacting to daily life. And so we release that small mind, we release that small thinking, and we allow the greatness and the goodness of all life to be ours here and now. In gratitude for this, I simply release my word, knowing that it is already done, and together, as we open our eyes, we say, and so it is.